Welcome back to Link by Golf. I'm your host Ross McGuire, and in this week's episode I'm delighted to be joined by the BBC journalist Brian McLauchlin. Brian has had a really interesting life and career, which has most recently been with the BBC. In this episode we hear from Brian about how he got into golf, some of the stories that he's had along the way, and I'm sure you're going to enjoy it. Let's go over to the show. Brian, thanks for coming on to the show. Great to see you.
Pleasure, Ross. Nice to speak to you.
And the way I start the show, Brian, is to figure out where you're from and how did you get into golf?
I was born in Stirling, in a little village just outside Stirling called Flynn, a wee mining village. But circumstances through my father had a bad accident, we ended up in Fife in the 70s. There was no golf course in Flynn. There is still not a golf course there. There's obviously one in Stirling. But I moved to a place called Lochgelly, and there was a golf course in Lochgelly, and it was in second year there. I decided to take a wee walk down, and I actually remember buying my first set of, well, I wouldn't even call it a set, my first few golf clubs. I had a paper round, and the money that I saved up off my paper round, I bought a couple of niblets and an old St Andrews wooden 3-wood that I think I paid about £3 for them with a tatty bag. And I turned up at the golf course with, of course, a couple of my school pals who were smashing the balls all over the place. But I got a bug back then. Eventually I did get a little bit better and I got some better clubs. I actually gave those clubs away, and they're probably worth an absolute fortune now. But that was how I got into golf. Lochgelly back then was only a 9-hole golf course, and I remember they extended it to 18 holes, and it was during the school holidays. There was a guy called Brian Marchbanks who was the Glen Eagles at the time, and he designed the back 9 at Lochgelly, and it became an 18-hole golf course. And although they've made tweaks to the course, I always try and play in the Lochgelly Seniors Open whenever I can at some point during the summer. Nice. I'm not a member there. I was a member there as a youngster. But then as you get older, football actually took over. I was playing a lot of football, and then other things happened, and I moved to where I am now in Pennycook through work in the mid-80s. So been here ever since, but that was where the golf first started. I was probably around about 13, 14 years of age at that point, and I remember school holidays going down there, and one particular day we played 4 rounds in one day at Lochgelly. We went, actually, after the first 36 holes, we went home and had our dinner, and there's a guy called Ali Gray, who I don't know where he is now, but Ali and I went back and played another 36 holes, ended up in twilight in the summer, and it was great days.
That's awesome.
It was still a great course. The course has changed a lot about since then. There's some new holes, there's some holes that were there back in the 70s and 80s, they've gone now. But a great way to learn golf, and just getting out and into the sunshine, and a good walk is what I would describe it for me. I was never really competitive as a youngster, but no, I loved it. Absolutely loved it. And that's how I got into golf. That was my first real taste of being on a golf course.
Fantastic. And then you talked about just your career and you moved to Pennycook. So what happened with your career in the early stages, Brian?
Well, I was working, believe it or not, I was actually working for British Coal at the time. And as the mining industry in the 80s, and it's actually pertinent now because they're looking at the 40th anniversary of the miner strikes back in the 80s. And I worked in sales and marketing in Fife for British Coal. Then I moved over here to Pennycook, and I worked at Bilson Glen for a little while. And eventually I was asked to go to Nottingham, and I think it was around about 88, 89. And I said, no, I could see that the end was nigh for the coal industry, and I thought, right, I need to get out of the co-owners training into something else, and that's when I started to get into sales management and worked finance for a while with the Prudential, and worked with a number of other companies as well. Sort of late 90s, I moved into mid 90s. Trying to think how old this I am now. I started working for a home improvement company for a little while. Did some sales management there, did a little bit of PR, and then eventually, as luck would have it, I was still playing football at the time. I did have a bad injury. I ruptured my Achilles when I was about 19. That stopped me playing for about 3 years. And my brother-in-law then was a DJ for Radio 4th.
All right.
And we started doing road shows, and we played for eventually when I got fit again, I played for the Radio 4th All-Stars in 1981, I think it was. Some great times. Played with guys like Andy Penman, Pat Stanton, George Stewart, all these guys. They were brilliant, and had a few interesting nights out with George Best. You may have heard of him.
Yeah.
George played for Hibs. He was very good friends with the Radio 4th sports editor, a guy called Vic Wood, and George was some guy.
That's awesome.
So it was brilliant, great times. But then I got married and had kids, and then everything fell apart. But no, it's. I'm still with my wife today, I have to say. 42 years married there this year.
Fantastic.
She's in Mallorca just now. I'm sitting in my house here in Penicuik at the moment. She's out on holiday.
So you're out playing golf again? Well, not tonight, obviously, but playing golf a lot this week.
Well, I'm playing tomorrow. I'm playing
Excellent.
At Drummoyk tomorrow, just north of St Andrews, where it's the Golf Writers Association of the UK it's a good-sized organisation, and it started way back in I think 1940s or 1950s. And one of the first people to become involved with it was a guy called Renton Laidlaw, who you probably heard of. Renton,
right.
A great commentator for the BBC. He was friends with every golfer who was a golfer. Palmer, Nicholas, Player. He knew them all. Sadly, he passed away a few years ago. But we now play for the Renton Laidlaw Shield every year, and that's tomorrow at Drummoyk. So, I'm looking forward to that.
And Drummoyk's a great track. I really enjoy playing.
I've only played it once. It was a long time ago. I remember it being very wet that day, and just looking out the window just now, there's a little bit damp up here just now, but hopefully the weather forecast tomorrow's okay.
You wouldn't believe it, but the southeast of England is as wet as I've seen it for 10 years since I moved here. It's pretty ridiculous at the moment, so I'm sure you'll be in good shape tomorrow. Yeah,
but no, it's getting into broadcasting was it really just happened by chance. I was working in services at the time, and I was also a friend of mine who was a racehorse trainer, a guy called Peter Monteith. Sadly no longer with us. Peter asked me for some help with PR, which I was able to do. I spoke to a few people, and we got into the radio station, and it was a radio station called Scott FM at the time. And we had Peter went in, did a great piece, and then the producer, his first name is Neil, I can't remember his surname. Anyway, he said to me, he said, look, how do you fancy coming in and doing a piece? And that's where it all started. Around about 93, 94, I think that was.
So you'd never done anything like that before?
Never, no. But they had, it was during the summer, and I was able to go in, and because I did play football, but not at a great level. I knew people, I knew Jim Jeffries, Billy Brown. They were two of my best buddies. Jim's still one of my best buddies today. Jim Leishman lived about 100 yards up the road from me when we lived in Fife. So I've known Jim since I was 14.
Wow.
The Campbell twins, Dick and Ian. My mother used to warn me not to go near them because it would be a bad influence on me.
Was it Dick that was on the Sacked in the Morning podcast? He was hilarious, eh? What a laugh he is.
Dick and Ian are just two fantastic guys who it's been a pleasure to know them for close to 50 years. I've known these guys. Yeah. And Dick was, believe it or not, Dick's called the chairman in our circles in the Campbell family, because Ian used to have, and I've been to a couple of them, Ian's parties on a Saturday night. This is years ago, and there was a big table, looked like a boardroom table, and Dick used to sit at the top, and that was why he got the nickname the chairman. And to this day, I still call him chairman.
And that's a very Scottish thing, I would say. I'm sure it happens elsewhere, but it's a very Scottish thing, isn't it? To just give somebody a nickname and it never goes.
No, I mean, Ian's a very, very successful businessman in his own right. He owns one of the largest recruitment companies in Europe. And I keep on winding Pink up when they say, how is it that he's got the chairman's seat and you just get this is because I just keep going to the bloody bar all the time, Brian. That's what it is. So, no, great boys, and I've been very, very fortunate to have these people in my life, basically all the way through my career, even when I was working in sales and whatever. When I moved into broadcasting, then they were a huge help to me. Jim in particular was a massive help to me. And always, I mean, oh goodness me, I've been away on golfing trips with Jim, and in fact, he phoned me last night to try and get me to play Gullin today, but I couldn't go today. But he's just a golf nut.
Excellent.
I always tried to, if Jim ever had a gripe with you, he would phone you up, and I would always try and deflect the call onto a golf. And so tell me, Jim, tell me about the last round. Tell me about Gullin on Monday.
He get lost in his golf and move on.
Oh, absolutely. But then he wasn't daft though, because he would say to me, never mind the bloody golf, you just sort this thing out for me. And that's what he's like. No, great people though, and good men. And I remember Jim actually saying to me when he was at Hearts, I think it was around about 96 or 97, Jim said something to me that stayed with me all my days, and he says, to be a good manager, you've got to sign good players, but it's more important that you sign good people. He says, because if you've got good people around about you, then they will find out who the bad people are around about you.
Yeah.
And to this day, I've kept that in my own working life. I've tried to surround myself with good people, keep my contacts as decent people, and by and large, that's what I've been able to do.
Yeah, and that led you to the next phase of your career, Brian, where you moved into the BBC as well after that starting sort of broadcasting. So how did that come about?
Well, when the BBC, I've been doing a lot of their work for Scott FM. They had a programme called The Bells Dugout on a Saturday, and they were doing the live football on a Saturday afternoon.
Yeah.
Then they actually lost the contract. The organisation was going bust, so they were closing. And then Radio 4 came to me, and they approached me to see if I would help them out, because they took up the contract for the end of the season, which I did. And then at the end of that season, it was Gordon Smith, who played for Rangers. I know Gordon quite well. Gordon was working at the BBC. He said, I think I might be able to get you into the BBC. I said, fine. So, and then a guy called Dougie Wernham phoned me up and said, Brian, he said, I've heard good things about you, I've heard your stuff, fancy coming through for a chat. And that's how it worked, and that was how it started.
Wow.
Started going to press conferences, doing games for them, all on a freelance basis. And then eventually just build up. I always found that even though I knew a fair amount of people, I didn't have any experience of covering football or what's needed. So what I did on my own back was I went to everything, whether it be a reserve match on a Tuesday night at Easter Road, or an under-18 game on a Thursday, or a Friday night game, or Saturday and Sunday games. Even if I wasn't working, I'd make a point of going to games and meeting people and speaking to people. And through that, eventually it grew. And then it was 5-6 years with the BBC on freelance, and eventually I was still working at the time as well. I was working for a company in Dunfermline that was doing the sales for them.
Right.
But then the BBC offered me a position on a permanent basis at the lowest grade, coming in as a researcher. And not an easy conversation to have with your missus when you're earning reasonable money. And then you say, look, what do you think of this? And fair play to Trish, my wife, she says, look, go for it. That's what we did. I had the other one or two things. I had a garage in Pennycook, a petrol station in Pennycook, which didn't last very long with that, and other things. But once I got the opportunity to get into the BBC, and never looked back, to be honest with you. My football days were beyond me then, but it was an opportunity afforded to very few people, but was one that I was determined to take with both hands. I didn't go to university. I got 1.5 O grades. I got English O grade on appeal. So it wasn't as if, a lot of people who are going into the BBC, you go in through, there was a pathway there through college or uni or whatever. I had nothing to do with that. So it was a little bit on the outside, and a lot of people were maybe saying, well, who is he? And that made me work even harder to get to where I was.
And it's a little bit like, I know that you started golf obviously early in your life, but a lot of guys that I've met who played football get into golf later in life as well, and your thing was, clearly you played golf anyway, but for you to continue your football, you've been a great position to do that as a reporter, which is fantastic.
Yeah, well, moving on to the golf, how it really got boosted back in 2008, 15 years ago. I was at the BBC, I was full-time at the BBC, and although I covered a few Open championships, it wasn't really, we covered the Open and occasionally the Scottish Open. Not every year we do that. And it was through a footballer, a friend of mine called Jim Hamilton, who used to play for Hearts, and Motherwell and Aberdeen. He lived in Livingston. He lived in Bathgate. But he was friendly with Stephen Gallagher, the golfer.
Right.
And Stephen had been ill, and indeed they thought his career was possibly coming to an end. He had an illness called sarcoidosis, which they thought could have been lung cancer at the time, and it was gravely ill at one point. So Steve didn't play didn't play golf for about 13 months. So I asked Hammy to introduce me to Stephen as he was making his comeback, and we went and we did a little documentary with Stephen down at Wentworth. Spent a week with Stephen at Wentworth, and he finished 4th. And then we went from there on Sunday. On the Monday, we went to US Open qualifying at Walton Heath, and he won the US Open qualifying at Walton Heath.
Wow, that's awesome.
All that formed into a little documentary that we put out in the week building up to the Scottish Open on BBC. So
that's incredible content, isn't it? What a story.
Absolutely. Yeah, a great story. And Stephen plays out of Kingsfield Golf Centre, which is in Lithgow, which they had just opened a 9-hole course. It was just basically it was farmland that had turned into a driving range initially, then they built a small 9-hole golf course. And Stephen introduced me to the owner there, Robert Arkley, and we're bestie buddies now, and I've been there ever since. The golf course last year, really proud of this. It was voted the best 9-hole golf facility in Scotland last year by Scottish Golf.
That's some accolade as well. There's plenty good 9-hole golf courses in Scotland. That's awesome for them.
We've got fantastic facilities. We've got trackmans on over 20 bays now. We've got an indoor golf facility there. We've got a short game area. The course is in magnificent condition. One of the greenkeepers just joined last year. He was 24 years at Bathgate and left Bathgate to come and work at Kingsfield.
Wow. That's incredible.
It's a fantastic facility, and I'm proud to be part of that, because we've grown it from a driving range to a 9-hole golf course to the golf course it is today, and receiving these awards, and the facility is just amazing. But all that started because Jim Hamilton gave me the number of Stephen Gallagher to start doing a documentary, and then Stephen introduced me to Robert. Wow. So that's how that chain of events all worked.
Yeah. And that's incredible sort of stories as well. And then with the BBC, just circling back a little bit, Brian, through the football and the golf, what kind of, so you mentioned the Open and some of these other things, what type of other events would you be covering for the BBC?
I've been to a World Cup with the BBC.
Wow.
I went to the Under-20 World Cup in 2007 in Vancouver, which was a real strange event. Scotland qualified by finishing runners-up in the Euro Under-19 event, or whatever it may be, in Poland. I think they lost to Poland in the final. But it was a very strange event because none of the big countries, there was no England, there was no Brazil, there was no Italy, there was no Spain, there was no France, they all didn't compete. And therefore, FIFA were struggling to sell the event, basically, to broadcasters around the world. So they offered it to the BBC if we would go out there and be host broadcasters alongside Canada for the event. And with Scotland being there, I went to Canada a couple of times, Vancouver initially, in the March to do a recce, because Scotland were out there playing a couple of games. Archie Gemmell was the Scotland manager at the time. Scotland manager.
How cool was that?
It was brilliant. It was, that was a 10-day trip. Scotland lost both games. But then I was, as well as covering those games, I was doing a lot of information gathering for the tournament in the summer. So there was, we covered the games. Scotland were based in Vancouver. They played 2 games Vancouver Island and 1 game in the city of Vancouver, and we were out there for the best part of 4 weeks, which was a phenomenal month out there for camaraderie, which was amazing, absolutely stunning. Brilliant trip. I'll tell you one story about actually going out in the June. Scotland's first game was. This was. We were leaving Glasgow the Thursday lunchtime to fly to Heathrow and then catch a connecting flight to Vancouver. Scotland were playing on the Tuesday, but we had a broadcast booked at 6 a.m. in the morning in Vancouver, so it's 2 p.m. UK time on the Saturday. So we'll leave Glasgow on the Thursday. As we're coming into land at Heathrow, the pilot puts the handbrake on. There's a gas leak at Heathrow Airport. We can't land, so we get rerouted to Newcastle. Every airplane in
Newcastle.
Every airplane that was due to land at Heathrow got dispersed all around the UK. We eventually got to Newcastle. There was British Airways. We ran out of drink on the plane, not surprisingly. We were sat in the tarmac at Newcastle for 4.5 hours. We eventually made it to Heathrow. We missed our connecting flight to Vancouver. We then spent a night in Milton Keynes, as that was the closest airport hotel, closest hotel we could get us into, because Wimbledon was on at the time, and we couldn't get a hotel. We arrived back at Heathrow Airport at 7 o'clock on the Friday morning, got to Vancouver at 10 o'clock on the Friday night, eventually. The trip that took us about 40 hours, I reckon, in total. And we did a broadcast at 6 a.m. on the Saturday morning, which was 2 p.m. in the afternoon in Glasgow. And there was Chip Young, myself, Alan Preston was there, and we did an hour's broadcast. I'm not sure quite how we did it, but we did it. We managed to get through it. We then went for breakfast, and as we're sitting at breakfast, as true as I'm sitting here speaking to you now, we were in a place called Earl's, which is a breakfast place in Vancouver Island, and we're watching these screens. It's like a bar lots of football on. Copa America was on at the time, and so on and so on. And then one of the screens, we said, that looked like a film that they were watching there. And it was Glasgow Airport, the terrorist attack at Glasgow Airport. Remember John Smeaton?
Yeah.
Right? And then our producer, Claire Kelly, said, my kids are flying out of Glasgow Airport today.
Oh my God.
She went into panic mode now, tried to get hold of them and couldn't get hold of them. This is all at 7:30 a.m. in Vancouver, and it's 3:30 p.m. in Glasgow.
My goodness.
So that was what happened in our very first morning, Vancouver, at the Scotland Under-20s World Cup. Scotland lost all 3 games, not surprisingly. It was an incredible trip, one I'll never ever forget, and great memories of people being out there at that time. Just brilliant.
Yeah, that's incredible. And then on the BBC side, in terms of golf, what type of events, sort of later, were you covering and still covering today as well, of course?
Yeah, 4 Ryder Cups, numerous Open Championships. I cover about 10 golf events a year for the BBC. That's what that allows me to do.
Yeah.
Not always men's events. We do women's events as well. We do the Scottish Women's event, the British Women's Open this year, which is at St Andrews, I think it's in August.
Yeah, that'll be awesome.
So, again, fantastic events. We've got Solheim Cup later this year in America, where, again, the European team are defending the trophy. I love going to British Opens, British Masters events. PGA at Wentworth is one of my favourite events of the year.
It's a great event, isn't it?
And it's by going to these events, you make a lot of friends, and it's a fantastic environment to work in. If you were to give me the choice, I have to say, working in golf or football, golf, hands up, all day long.
Yeah,
all day long.
No wonder.
It's a lot of travelling, and I don't mind that. I've been very fortunate to be at the DP World Tour finals in Dubai on 4 or 5 occasions.
It's a great setup in Jumeirah, isn't it, as well?
Yeah, fantastic. Been in Dubai about 20 times, covering golf, and a couple of times on holiday as well. And Stephen, obviously, 2-time winner of the Dubai Desert Classic.
Yeah.
Amazing. Just fantastic time.
Were you there when he held off Tiger for one of his wins?
Yes, that was
that must have been really cool. Yeah.
It was the 25th anniversary, and he played his first 2 rounds with Tiger and Rory. Yeah,
wow.
So, yeah, Steve he's a good pal of mine. He's on his way back, I think, from Japan at the moment. Didn't make it back the weekend. But I think the plan is for Stephen to go to the States later this year and try and force his way into the Champions Tour, the Seniors Tour out there. Turns 50 in November, so that's the goal he's made for himself.
Yeah, and I think the great thing about Stephen, that I would say as a sort of outside observer and fan, to be honest, is I think what's brilliant, he's had a really great golfing career himself, but his foundation and what they do is just phenomenal. So do you have any insight into that yourself, Brian, in terms of what it is?
I remember when he first started, I helped him out as much as I possibly could, and we actually, when I think it was the second year of the foundation, we had a foundation match at Renaissance Club between backers of Stephen's foundation against Paul Lawry's foundation. It's called the Foundations Cup.
Yeah.
And great insight. I think it was quite expensive to play in. I think it was about £2,500 to play in it, but you got 2 days at Renaissance going head to head with another foundation. So Paul got some of his backers to come in. There was one guy I remember, I played against him on the second day, and he'd flown in from India, and he was an Aberdonian.
Wow, that's incredible.
Had sold his business to a group of Indians, and he was chief executive. It was a coffee making machine that he'd sold to this organisation. He'd sold it, went out to India, to help them set up their business out there. But he came back to fly in to play in this event, and I hosted that night. I hosted a chat with Stephen and Paul Laurie, and there was maybe about 30 people there, very intimate. Just for a Q&A session. It was supposed to last 45 minutes. It lasted 3.5 hours. Way into the wee small hours of the night at Rennie's, but a fantastic night again. Like Stuart Milne from Aberdeen was there, and it was just brilliant. Jim's Stephen's dad, Jim, sadly no longer with us. Jim was there as well, and Jim, what a funny man he was. He could hold court with any audience on the planet. He's just an amazing man. But no, great memories. But yeah, the foundation started up, and I think it's grown and grown and grown. We have a big dinner once a year. This year, I think it's actually being held in December. It's going to be a lunch in December to try and raise more funds. The last one we raised over £100,000 at Kingsfield Golf Club. One of Stephen's big things was to try and get golf into the curriculum in West Lothian schools. And although there was a lot of pushback, believe it or not, from some of the schools, he was able to make it happen. So kids now are given the opportunity to come to Kingsfield and play golf. They have golf clubs there.
Fantastic.
Golf balls. There is no reason why nobody can then say, well, we weren't given the chance to do that. And that was the one thing for Stephen. He didn't want kids saying, well, we can't do this because of this or whatever reason. So that's the big thing about the foundation. Give them an opportunity to do it. They don't necessarily need to be the next Stephen Gallagher or the next Colin Montgomery. It's about them having fun. And that's one of the things that the foundation does do. They hold events and competitive to a sense, but at the same time, they just want it to be fun for the kids. Then they'll make them enjoy themselves. So it costs a lot of money to run. Your facility at Kingsfield is now the Stephen Gallagher Centre of Excellence, and the foundation uses that a lot, certainly in the winter anyway, to try and, when the weather's damp and wet or snowy, they can come to an environment, and there's indoor bays there, there's putting zones there.
Oh, that's really cool.
It's a facility that's fantastic, and there's not many like it. And Bob MacIntyre, Bob was actually in it last year, and it's the first time he'd been down at Kingsfield for a while, and he came in and he seen why have we not got 20 of these centres throughout the UK, throughout Scotland even, because that's what needed to try and help young people get themselves into golf.
Yeah, and that's a really great story as well, Brian, and it's a great message that, I think the perception of golf, and I live in the southeast of England now, so it's greatly different down here to what it is in Scotland, I've got to be honest. And even in Scotland, look, you've got your exclusive clubs that get all that, but golf, certainly when I was a youngster, which is a long time ago now, it was still very accessible. Like people, it was like the second game that everybody played. You might play football, but everybody would hit a golf ball in some way, whether it be a football park, where, as Andy Devlin said in one other pods, no ball games, that'll be right. But it's so true that our country has got so many people that play golf, and it's such a great thing for bringing communities together and people together. And a lot of the guys that I've had on, I've known for, and not necessarily known them that well. I've maybe played with them, I've come across them. You're talking 20, 25 years ago, and there's just this lovely connection between people when they play golf together. That Stephen is then, and Paul, they're fostering communities that will last for a long, long time within the country. It's awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's still seen, I think, in some parts of the country as being an elitist sport.
Yeah, completely.
Especially when golf equipment now can be very expensive. Expensive.
It can be.
But it can also be relatively affordable. If, not everybody has to have the latest QI10 drivers that cost £500 or £600.
No.
Or the latest set of ping irons, which cost you £1,400. You can easily buy a second-hand set of clubs. I mean, I live in Pennycook, and my local club's Glencourse, And if I go in to see the pro there, which I do from time to time, he's got irons there for 50 quid.
Yeah.
And I know that he also runs, classes for young girls to try and get in, because there are more and more girls now trying to get into golf, and I think in the next 5 to 10 years, I think there'll be an even greater burst, because there are some really, really talented young females now coming into the sport. And once they get their feet in the floor and get going, then I can see them really being names to be dealt with in the world of golf.
Yeah, I was a member at Farnham up until about a year ago, and Lottie Wood from Farnham just won the Augusta National Women's Amateur, and she's awesome, as you would have seen. In the tournament, when she birdied 3 at the last 4 to win it, it was just ridiculous finish. So, yeah, it's great to see more women playing the game as well.
Absolutely. And of course, it's a game, unlike football, which is more a physical game. You could go out and play a game. They've got their own tees, they've got their own handicaps. I could go and play Tiger Woods tomorrow. He'd probably still beat me, despite the fact he'd be giving me 30 shots. He would probably still beat me. But it would be competitive in some sense. But that's the beauty of golf. There are no barriers. You can play the sport with anybody, from the best golfers in the world to somebody just starting out. It can happen.
Absolutely. Yeah, and just circling back on, so did you say you're a member at Glencourse as well? Or
No, I'm not a member of Glencourse. No, I know the pro there, Cliff Jones. He was PGA captain for a few years, so he's a good guy, but no, I'm a member at Kingsfield and a loyal member there.
Yeah, and I was going to ask about something, another part you're involved with at Kingsfield. I noticed you're a member there as well, you are a member there, and you support a regular event called Katie's Cup, which is in aid of a stillborn charity and a number of other charities. So I was just going to ask you a little bit about that, Brian, if you wanted to share on that too.
Yeah, well, the Arkley family, Robert Arkley, Susan and Jane Arkley are the 3 owners of Kingsfield. And sadly, just over 20 years ago, Jane lost a daughter called Katie, stillborn. So around 12 years ago, we decided to have a charity day, and very low key, but it went really well. And over the years, it's just grown and grown and grown, and we now have this sold out event in August every year called Katie's Cup, where we have around 130 golfers coming, mainly members, some not members though, but they pay a fee, they pay, I think it's £50 a head to play in it, they get their goodie bag, and they play for Katie's Cup. But we think it's a little bit special because after that, we have, in one of the barns, we have our presentation of prizes, and we have auctions, and we've been very, very fortunate over the years to being able to get some incredible prizes. Signed Masters flag from John Ram, for example.
My goodness,
Patrick Reed, although he's in the Live Tour, so is John Ram now. Patrick Reed, very supportive. Rory McIlroy. That's all coming through the likes of Stephen Gallagher and the likes, and Richie Ramsey, who is a big supporter of Kingsfield as well.
That's really cool. That's brilliant.
The likes of Titleist, TaylorMade. Kingsfield's a TaylorMade fitting centre, so they supply balls for prizes, they supply bags. We've had Wimbledon tickets given to us, centre court tickets for Wimbledon for a couple of days. All of that comes from, going back to what I was talking about earlier on, having good people around about you, and being able to be honest with them, tell them what it's for. And some of the charities we've raised money for, yes, we've raised a lot of money for stillborn charities, but Maggie's is one that we raised money for a couple of years ago. The Doddy Weir Foundation, Robert Arkley went to agricultural college with Doddy Weir. So Doddy was actually a friend of Kingsfield, One of the things we tried to do at Kingsfield for the members, we've only got a membership of 150.
Right.
We do members' nights, and Doddy came to one of our members' nights, which I hosted, and we had the likes of Neil Lennon, Craig Brown was there, Stephen's obviously been to a few of them, Richie's been to a few. It's just a very homely club, and again, we've got good people. There's good people that run it. Yes, we want to raise a lot of money for charities. Yes, it's a business. It's a family-run business as well. Mm-hmm. But it's just the Katie's Cup scenario is just something that's growing arms and legs. And the minute 1 year's finished, it's the dates in the diary for next year, and we get the teams rebooking again for next year. With teams coming up from London to play in it. Again, just because they like the idea of what we do. It's not. Yeah. There's no profit in this at all for Kingsfield. In fact, they absorb a lot of the costs, for what's required to put on a day like that. But no, they're just very, very friendly people, and it's Katie's Cup is something that's very close to everyone who's associated with Kingsfield. And as long as I'm going to be a member there, I'll be pushing to try and make sure it goes from strength to strength, because it has done every year. And we must have raised, I reckon, well over £200,000 for local charities.
Well, that's incredible. And I mean, for such a tragic event, it's fantastic that there's so much good has come from it as well, and all these people are getting involved.
Yeah, that's a good thing. You do find that Linlithgow is quite a tight community. And when even the other golf courses, like there's two other golf courses in Linlithgow, there's West Lothian Club and Linlithgow, but they're very helpful in terms of what we do on that day, and help us out on that day. But there's other charities as well that we help. The On-Course charity, which is the Armed Forces, for former Armed Forces personnel who have maybe lost a limb, but want to still be involved in golf. In fact, one of the greenkeepers at Kingsfield lost a leg in Iraq, and he came to Kingsfield through the On-Course Foundation, and then ended up getting a job there.
Oh.
Sned, so he's there. He's been there 10 years plus now. So, and he's there every day, whether it be raking bunkers or out cutting greens or whatever. And then he'll go. He's not a very good golfer, but he tries. But he's just brilliant company. And he lost a leg in I think it was Iraq or Afghanistan. He lost a leg in, but he's there every day. You wouldn't know it. He's got a fantastic persona about him, and he'll sit down and tell you his story, no problem at all. But he just loves his golf. And again, that's something that Kingsfield's done, is bring people in who 15 years ago he would never have seen himself as being a greenkeeper at a golf course. But there he is, he's got a full-time job now at Kingsfield.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a brilliant story. And Kingsfield, I haven't been because I moved a good number of years ago, but it was always a lovely place when I first started. I actually started going there about 23 years ago, not long after it opened. Yeah, I lived quite near it and used it a lot. Robert was probably sick of the sight of me. Yeah, wow. I was there all the time. Yeah, I was a member at Bridgend Golf Club for a wee while.
Wow,
yeah.
Well, you wouldn't recognise Kingsfield now. It's the new indoor facility is just at the bottom end of the car park there.
Oh yeah.
And it's still a 9-hole course. Mm-hmm. We've now got 27 different tees, so there are various routes around the golf course.
Oh, excellent!
It's terrific to play. All the members there are people might say, it's only a wee small 9-hole golf course. It's very, very tricky. You've got to plot your way around it. It's not easy. It's playable. Don't get me wrong. It's not going to beat you up. It's very, very playable. But no, you'll enjoy it. It's certainly enjoyable. And primarily, it's a pay and play course. That's why they only have about 150 members.
Yeah.
So they want people to come and enjoy it 7 days a week.
Yeah, but it was always a great facility. The things that you you want to be good. The balls are always really good. The setup is always really good. You're never messing about, and yeah, I'll definitely need to get back there when I come back up the road.
Absolutely. More than welcome.
So back on to your golf specifically a wee bit more. So how much are you playing these days, Brian?
Well, I played Royal Troon last week at the Open Media Day, and
it's a tough life, eh?
First game of the year, because the weather up here has been so bad. I've had a problem in my knee as well, so wanted to wait. I'm not a fair weather golfer. I do play in the winter, but just not been able to play much this winter at all. I broke 90, which I was delighted at. So tomorrow I've got a game at Drummoy. We've got the Rent Laidlaw Shield tomorrow. And on Wednesday I'm playing in the Scottish Open Media Day at Renaissance this week. So it's a busy week.
It's a decent return back, eh? Drummoy and then Renaissance.
It's not bad. I've not actually said Kingsfield. Kingsfield is in fantastic condition. I've not played Kingsfield since October last year. But yeah, it's a busy time in the month because the media, we do get invites to certain events. I'll be up at St Andrews in a couple of weeks. We've got that. When I think Georgia Hall is going to be playing a few holes with us. Excellent. And then the following day I'm actually up at Carnoustie playing in the British Seniors Open Media Day. So St Andrews and Carnoustie in 2 days. So that's my golf.
Hibernation into golf in dreamland.
Well, it is a little bit, and you do have to pinch yourself a little bit. You know, I will be playing Kingsfield. I've got a few ties to play at Kingsfield coming up, so I better get my game in order. And I think probably going to Renaissance and St Andrews and Carnoustie should be able to tighten my game up a little bit.
I think you'll be alright after playing them.
But no, it's I play off 12.7. It's my handicap. At one point, I got as low as 8.9. Whether I get back to single figures again, I'm not sure. But I'm a social golfer. I do like competitive golf. The Golf Writers Association is very, very competitive. Yeah. We have a series of events, one of which is tomorrow, the Rent Laidlaw Shield, where you accumulate points. And then at the end of the season, it's normally October, we have what's called the Race to Hoylake final. So we play Royal Liverpool, which is the final event of the AGW season. It's a 2-day event. We play Wallersley Golf Club on the first day, and then we play Royal Liverpool the following day. And I finished second in it last year. So I have a task this year to go and win. I was actually winning it going into the last round last year, and I got pipped at the post by an Aberdonian who plays off a handicap about 23, who I just don't know how he plays off 23. But anyway, that's my gripe up. But no, that's how competitive my golf is.
And then was me going to ask you, what seniors opens were you playing in? You're too busy. You get too much other stuff to play in.
I'm really busy actually. Obviously, my main job is football throughout the season.
Yeah, of course,
and I'll cover over 100 games this year. On 99 at the moment.
Wow.
And I'll be doing my 100th game probably tomorrow night. I'll probably be going to see Spartans against Peterhead.
So what's that, about three games a week effectively in terms of season time?
Yeah.
It'll be 2.5.
40 odd weeks. My first game of this season was in June the 23rd last year.
Wow.
Pre-season friendly between Dunfermline and the German club St Pauli. And the reason I covered that game because there's a big tie-up between St Pauli and Celtic, and which goes back decades. And the new owners of Dunfermline were also at one point owners of St Pauli. So that's the reason that game came about. So so that was the 23rd of June. Then I went away and did golf for the best part of 5 weeks, then came back and then straight into European football and domestic football. And then I had a week at the Ryder Cup, which was in all the events I've covered in nearly 30 years of journalism, it was the best week I have ever had in my life, without any question.
And I nearly jumped in when you mentioned the Ryder Cup. Sarah was going to ask you which Ryder Cup was your favourite, but I think you've just answered it.
It was... Glen Eagles was sensational.
Yeah,
and
imagine.
I think the Americans, even though they lost, that the American players really enjoyed that week. That was actually the year before it, or 2 years bore it. That was when I first met Patrick Reed. He played in the Scottish Open up at Castle Stewart.
Right.
And the first time I'd met him, he was just coming on the scene, and he told me back in the summer of 2012 that his goal was to try and work his way into the team to play in the US team, to play at Glen Eagles, and he achieved that. And I know he's not everybody's cup of tea, Patrick, but I've got to say, I've always found him very amenable. Speak to him. If you go to speak to him on the range, he'll give you time. Very pleasant guy. And I remember when he won the Masters, he came and played in the Scottish Open, which was at Gullen that year. And I was down seeing Stephen on the range, and Patrick was next to us on the range.
Mm-hmm.
And Stephen said to me, he said, Brian, says, you know Patrick well, don't you? I said, well, I know him. He says, can you go and ask him if he'll sign some flags for us? Because I've got half a dozen flags in my car. I says, no problem. So I went and I said, how are you getting on, Patrick? I said, yeah, well done. I said, look, if I've got some flags here, would you mind signing them for us? No problem, Brian, just go get them. So he stopped his practice. He got down on his knees and signed half a dozen Masters flags for us.
That's
Can't
awesome.
knock a guy for that. That's different.
No.
You know, that's what I'm again. I take people the way that they take me, and he's always treated me with, nice. And I always try and frame my questions when I'm speaking to people, never in a nasty way, because it's never personal with me. There are at times difficult questions you've got to ask, and they appreciate that as well. But no, get back to your original question. The Ryder Cup in Rome was the best golf event I have ever been to in my life. The best sporting event I've ever been to. And I've been to many sporting events, World Cups, Euro Championships, whatever. The Ryder Cup last year was phenomenal. Everything was just brilliant. The weather, the crowds, the golf was sensational. We had a kilt on it with Bob MacIntyre. The access to the players was, from both teams, was phenomenal. The access to the captain was phenomenal. I remember standing broadcasting to Radio Scotland 6:30 a.m. in the first morning, and there was 40,000 people surrounding me, and it was just phenomenal. I'll live with me forever, that, and it was just a great week. Long weeks, very tiring weeks, long days, but well worth it in the end.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, Brian, moving into the back nine here for the podcast.
Okay.
And I've got some, I'm going to say quick fire, it might not be quick fire, but some short questions we're going to finish out on. We've got 9 of them, so let's see if we can get through them. So, favourite golfer, past or present, who's your favourite golfer?
Jack Nicklaus.
Brilliant.
Met Jack on numerous occasions. In fact, one of the first Opens I covered, I think it was in the mid-90s for Scott FM, interviewed Jack down at Troon, which was also was the first Open Championship Tiger Woods played as a pro. He played in
97.
In 97 it was, yeah. He played in 2 previous Opens, but his first one as a pro was in 97. So, yeah, Jack, an absolute diamond. I remember speaking to him. My producer was a guy called Ian Mercer, who is the son of Wallace Mercer, who used to own Hearts Football Club.
Right.
And I remember going down on the Saturday, and Ian said to me, "I've got you an interview lined up, Brian, for back of one." I said, "Who is it?" He said, "Jack Nicklaus." I says, "Aye, right, very good, Ian." And he said, "No, I'm not kidding you. He's out in the course, and he said he's going to come to the booth and meet us here about 1:30. Sure as nightfall is day, in he comes, Jack Nicklaus. Wow. It gave me 20 minutes of his time. Not something that happens every day.
No, that's awesome. Fantastic. Can't top that one. Right.
But,
Best golfer you've ever played with?
That's tough.
I suppose you've just mentioned a load of guys you've probably played with. Don't want to offend anyone.
I played with Paul Lawrie, Open champion,
Uh-huh.
Ryder Cup winner.
Wow.
Played with Stephen Gallagher, Ryder Cup winner. Who else have I played with? Oh my goodness me. Played with Richie Ramsey, fair bit actually. Richie's solid. I would have, and I've played with Bob MacIntyre.
Oh, cool.
Bob down at Renaissance. I'll get a quick laugh there. Bob, we were on the first tee, and Bob had never seen me hit a ball in my life. I'm quite friendly with Bob, right? I've known Bob since he was 14. He actually played in Katie's Cup. He's played in Katie's Cup 3 times.
Oh, excellent.
When he was 14, 15 and 17.
That's
so,
brilliant.
So I'm standing on the tee. It's the media day, and I do smash a driver down the first. Absolutely beauty. And Bob went, "Oh my God, Scoop, I did not know you could hit a ball like that." So next on the tee, Robert MacIntyre, boom, 80 yards in front of me, screamed it, and he just looks at me and says, "Just pick that one up, Brian, on the way past, will you?" Magnificent. Bob's actually, I really like Bob, and I know he's in America just now. I was in Dubai when he won the Rookie of the Year. His family are just amazing people. They take in foster kids in Oban. They're a big family in Oban, and I was very, very thankful to Bob. He invited me up there in November last year when he had his going away party when he was going to the States. And we had a night at Glencruiton Golf Club.
Oh, that's awesome.
It was just awesome. He brought the Ryder Cup. We'd gone around the primary schools in Oban during the day, took the Ryder Cup round the schools, and then we had a party at night in Glencruiton, which was just phenomenal. And I had to leave early on the Saturday morning because I was covering Livingston against Hibs in the afternoon. But
really cool.
What a night we had in Oban. One night in Oban. There's a book there somewhere.
Absolutely. Right, you might have talked about this.
I've not answered your question yet though. Best golfer I've ever played with, I'll go with Stephen Gallagher.
Brilliant. Right, and this might relate to the first part, even though Bob screamed at 80 past you. What's the best shot you've ever hit?
Best shot I've ever hit was at Kingsfield. And it was a qualifier I was playing in for the club championship. The 5th hole, I was 3 down at the turn. I got it down to 2 down with 5 to play. And my ball was nestling just in the outside of a bush. And it was on a slope. And it was just a horrendous shot that I would have had. Anyway, I got a 5-iron to it. And I managed to hit it to about 20 feet. And I sank the putt for birdie. So that shot there, only 2 people seen it. I was absolutely delighted with it though. But yeah, 5-iron at Kingsfield at the 14th hole, I think it was. Yeah, it was actually the way I was having the club was actually about 6 inches off the ground because the ball was that high above my feet, and I just tried, and I went over water as well to get to the green and over gorse bushes. And I landed about 20 feet for the pin, and I rolled in the putt for birdie. That was the most satisfaction I think I've had in a golf course. I've never had a hole in one. I've hit the pin on a couple of occasions, but that shot there, that meant a lot because the pressure was on.
Don't worry about the hole in one part. My brother's in that club as well. He's never had a hole in one either. I hope he's listening to this as well. Right, brilliant. So this might be that shot, but what's the best shot you've ever seen live?
I'm going to give you two shots, and they
Okay.
were both last year, and they came within 15 minutes of each other. And it was at the Scottish Open at Renaissance last year, and Bob MacIntyre hit a 3-wood from the rough to 6 feet and then rolled in the putt, and the whole world thought that was it. Bob's going to be the first Scottish Open champion since Monty, and only for Rory to come from the clouds, birdied 17, needed a birdie 18, and he hit a 2-iron from the middle of the fairway. He was very lucky actually with his tee shot because he was only a few yards away from the bunker, and Rory hit this 2-iron as good as you've seen it, and I've watched it from numerous angles, and it lands just like a bird with blisters, and it lands just 12 feet for the pin, and he rolls the putt in to deny Bob the Scottish Open. And it was just two of the best shots that you'll ever see.
They were
Rory probably. Bob was very lucky with his tee shot as well, because his tee shot landed in a pathway. Otherwise, he could have been knee deep in the hay. But his 3-wood he hit was just absolutely phenomenal, and it was into 25 mile/hour winds. Trouble right, trouble left. You couldn't go long. If you were short, it would roll back off the green. And there were just two phenomenal shots by two brilliant golfers. But yeah, I'm going to say that's a dead heat, that one between Bob and Rory.
Yeah, I'll give you that. They were awesome shots. Okay, this one. I'm hoping you've got a decent count on this. It doesn't need to be exact, but how many courses do you reckon you've played?
I've played golf in Canada, America, the UK. I've been in Ireland, Wales, England, obviously Scotland, Spain, Portugal, France, Dubai. Played a lot of golf in Dubai, actually. I reckon I've probably played maybe 100 courses, maybe 150.
Awesome.
Courses. I'm being chewed by my dog at the moment, I'm afraid, so that's why I'm moving about a bit.
That's right.
But yeah, everyone's different. I hadn't played Troon for over 30 years till I went down there last week. I'd forgotten just how good a track it was, actually.
I played it.
You've never played it, no?
No.
It's a phenomenal course, and believe everything you read about the postage stamp. It's a flick with a wedge. This year it can be as short as 99 yards. The maximum will be 123. Don't let that put you off, because there's normally a crosswind there, as there was last week. The green slopes from left to right. If you go too far left, you'll be in a bunker that you'll really struggle to get out of. If you're short, there's a bunker at the front that you'll struggle to get out of. If you're long, you could be down in the gorse at the back of the green. It's just a phenomenal course, and a great hole, a fantastic hole. And I've got to say the new, they've extended the 6th hole, the par 5, to 623 yards now. And last week it was playing into the wind. So that's not a par 5, that's a par 7. If it's into the wind.
Also, especially down there on the coast.
Yeah, but phenomenal. But no, it's going to be a fantastic Open this year. The stands are starting to go up already, and there's a little bit of an edge down in Ayrshire, because it's just a phenomenal part of the world, and it's great to see the Open coming back to Scotland again.
Absolutely. Okay, you might have answered this just based on what you've talked about, but let's find out. What's your favourite course in Scotland?
Kingsbands. Very fortunate to be given access to Kingsbands on a couple of times a year, and I've got to say, on a good day, and when the weather's nice, it is Scotland's answer to Pebble Beach for me. It has the views, it has everything. Testing holes, it has holes as well, though. It's a playable course. That's why I think it's a perfect venue for the Dunhill Links, where the amateurs can go and they can hack their way around there as well, because some of the holes are drivable par fours, others are longish par fives, where from the back tees the pros will find a challenge. There's par threes there where you're going over water and rocks, where you basically can't see the green, and you've got infinity greens, and it's got everything. I love it. It's playable. Can't afford to play there every day because I think it's $1,700 for a 4-ball this year at Kingsbarns.
Wow.
It's full of Americans, but yeah, great place. Favourite course. Yeah, there's a few others that run close to it, but yeah, for me, I love Glen Eagles, I love St Andrews, but Kingsbarns just takes it. I think when the weather's nice, there's very few places better to be in Scotland.
Absolutely. And going outside Scotland, what's your favourite course that you've played outside Scotland?
I think it has to be the Earth course at Jumeirah Golf Estates for the DP Tour finals. Again, so fortunate to be able to play that in one of the events prior to the finals, and it's got the wow factor. It's just got everything going for it. And I think you could be 4 shots clear, but in front of you, if you're standing on that 18th tee, and all you can see is the burn, as we call it, running right up the middle of the fairway. I remember actually watching Mark Warren out there a few years ago. Mark actually plays the course really well, but apparently his game's sort of falling off a cliff at the moment. But he tried to go to the right-hand side of it, of the burn, which would give him a much shorter approach shot in. And he absolutely smashed his drive. But just at the last minute, it caught a little bit of wind and it just drifted into the burn. And that's what that hole can do to you. A lot of the players try to play it safe. You go up the left-hand side. But if you play it safe and you don't find the fairway, because it all runs towards the burn, you could find yourself in quite deep rough there as well, which makes going for the green impossible, because in front of the green, you've got a big pool of water, you've got some rocks, and you've got some quite nasty bunkers away to the right-hand side as well. Rory's mastered it. He likes to go up that right-hand side, and there's a plaque, I think, in the fairway there where he hit one of these incredible 3 woods I think it was to deny Henrik Stenson, one of the DP Tour finals one year. Phenomenal golf there. Rory loves that place, and that's why I would say that is the best course I've played outside of Scotland. It's got everything, and it's more often than not sunny out there. It's not wet. You don't need a waterproof in Dubai.
Yeah, and it's a great event now, Brian. I don't know if it's still free, but I happened to be out there for work years ago at the same time, which was a great coincidence. But anyway, I went to that event and it was actually free. So all you had to do was pretty much, believe it or not, just print a ticket off the website and turn up straight in. And it was a brilliant event. It's so much access in terms of being able to get close to the players. And I got up really close on 10, I think it must have been. And it was Rory, Henrik Stenson and Richard Sterney, South African player.
Yeah.
So Sterney went first, then Stenson ripped this 3-wood, and then Rory was the start of the show. I think the hole's 460, and he must have left himself 60 yards. It was outrageous how far he had it.
Yeah. I remember being out there, it was when Bob did win the Rookie of the Year. And in the last round of that event, he was playing with Justin Rose. And you'll know there's a lot of expats out there. And Bob was coming around. Bob was getting the cheers because this was huge for Bob to win this event. Kurt Kitayama was the player that he was up against. And he was 4 or 5 shots clear of Kurt going into the weekend. So as long as he stayed safe, he was going to be okay. And there's a little bar area around about the 17th. And when the players walked by it, with a lot of Scots, you go, go on, Bob, well done. And all you could then hear was this little dainty voice, and you too, Mr. Rose. and it was Bob's mum, Carol, who was shouting, because all the support was for Bob, and says, "Good luck to you too, Mr. Rose." And Bob just turned to Justin and says, "That's my mum."
Brilliant.
Yeah, fantastic. But no, I love the course, and every opportunity I get out there, I go there. I love the Emirates Golf Club as well, the Magis, where Stevie won his 2 Desert Classics. That's fantastic. But again, I think just for where it is, the finishing hole for me, I think that's the 18th at Jumeirah is the one for me on the Earth course.
And is it the Faldo course at Emirates is the one that's got floodlights?
Yeah,
you can at night time.
Yeah, played it once about 10 years ago. Went to play it again about 4 years ago, and then, believe it or not, we were rained off. With terrible rain there. I was out actually. Believe it or not, I was covering football clubs out there. Celtic and Aberdeen and Rangers, I think, were out there, or Hibs were out there at the time. In the midwinter break, so I was out there covering that. Went to play the golf, but the course got closed because it was waterlogged.
Nightmare.
I know. But they'd be playing it on the Saturday morning. I know it was a Friday night. The course would be cleared by the Saturday morning.
Brilliant. Right, one final short question here, Brian.
Yeah.
Favourite golf hole you've ever played? And again, you might have answered this one already, but what's the favourite hole you've ever played?
I'm going to go back to Kings Barnes again. There's a par 3 there. I love par 3 holes. There's a par 3 there on the back 9. I think it's maybe the 15th. And from the back tees, it's about 220, but you can't see the green. You're over water, you're over rocks. You've got to walk over a little bridge to get to the other side of the water and the rocks. And it's a huge green. But I always find it a challenge, but I love it. I love it. I can't wait to get to that hole. So, for me, that's a fantastic hole. We've got a really nice par 3 at Kingsfield, which is lengthy, is about nearly 200, I think, from the back tees. And everything slopes away down a gully, down to the right-hand side, out of bounds on the left. So that's a challenge as well. But yeah, par 3 for me at Kings Barnes. But of all the courses, I would say that's the one. All the holes I played, that's something. I've got to say, I love the postage stamp last week as well, and I did manage to keep it in the green, although I did 3-putt from 25 feet.
There's not many tell people that, Brian. Come on.
I know.
Knocked it in close and rolled it. Brilliant. So just closing up here, Brian, I've really enjoyed speaking to you, and thanks again for coming on. I really appreciate it. For any listeners out there, so you didn't follow a path that was straight into journalism, and I think it's an amazing story. So what advice would you have for anybody that's thinking about journalism? You know, what kind of things can they look out for as they're trying to get into that as a career?
I think there are more opportunities now. I think try and do something different from mainstream. Don't try and be the Celtic reporter, for example, or the Hearts reporter, because there are people already doing those jobs. Find a niche to start with and build up a portfolio of work. And then you can go to a radio station, a TV broadcaster, a podcast. You can do your own podcasts. That's actually a really good way, I think. Yeah, like yourself. And then don't be afraid to tap on doors. Be prepared for knockbacks, because knockbacks will happen. But the more you tap on a door, eventually somebody will say, "In you come." So, yeah, you've got to be thick-skinned. You've got to be prepared to take a hit. A lot of it is unpaid, so don't think that you're going to walk into a job tomorrow and it's going to pay you £100,000 a year. That doesn't happen in journalism. Don't think you're going to walk into Sky or TNT or Premier Sports and just walk straight into a gig to being a trackside reporter or a commentator. It takes years to build up. You have to have something to be there, and it takes years to work at that something. find your niche, be confident you can do it, be the best you can at it. Oh, don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to phone up fellow journalists, people who are in the game already, and ask them questions. How did you do this? Can you give me some advice on that? And that's the key. Don't be afraid to ask a question, because if you become a journalist, you're going to have to ask some questions. And when you do ask the questions, you've got to make sure they're the right ones. So, yeah, I'll be honest with you, I'm glad I'm at the latter stages of it, because I'm not sure if I could go through the same thing again to get to this stage that I'm at. But listen, I've been to places and spoken to people that I would never have dreamt of speaking to. And I'll give you one final story about the 150th Open Championship in that week. And of course, we all know it was an Open that was delayed a year through COVID and so on. So on that week, on the Tuesday morning, I had breakfast with Gary Player at a hotel in St Andrews. I'd interviewed Gary on numerous occasions. On the Wednesday, there was a lunch with Jack Nicklaus, which was for about 40 or 50 people, which I was invited to. Phenomenal. Sat next to Jack's son at the lunch. Amazing. Amazing. And on the Friday, just to tee it off, to finish the whole thing off, on Friday afternoon, Tiger Woods was coming up 18, and I think he finished 7 over, for the event. And as he was finishing, Rory McIlroy was starting his round, so they passed cross on the fairways. But the media personnel at the Open had come to us and said, look, Tiger's going to be he's not doing a big press conference, he's going to do around 20 of us in an area just right next to the recorders area. So I was very, very fortunate to be one of those 20 people there, and I got the first question to Tiger. And people. And my colleague Tom English, he was there as well. So I got the first question, and Tom got the last question to Tiger.
Fantastic.
And that was a week I'll never ever forget. Doesn't quite cap off what the Ryder Cup was last year for me, because I still think that was the best event. But to speak to Player, to Nicklaus and Woods in the space of 3 or 4 days was, again, I'm just a wee boy from Stirling, Berlin, who's lived a dream, to be fair. Without him and too much money, it hasn't had, but it's not all about the money. If it was been about the money, I wouldn't be doing this job, I can assure you. But this is all about having fun. And I've certainly had fun doing this.
Yeah, and Brian, thanks so much for coming on, and great advice for people who are thinking about journalism. So, look, I really appreciate you doing this. Thanks again, and enjoy the golf you've got coming up. I'm sure you're going to have a great time.
I'm sure I will. Thanks again, and good luck with the podcast. Really enjoyed it.
No problem. Thanks a lot. Cheers. Well, what a great insight from Brian. I hope you enjoyed the show, folks, and if you did, please remember to like, share and subscribe to the podcast, and I'll have another episode out soon. Thanks again for listening to Link by Golf. Have a great day. Goodbye.